Hi, I'm Sterling Hart, and this is Dreamlight, where we work on dream interpretation and using the insights in the waking life. Today we are looking at the many different types of experiences you can have with subliminal dreams. These can be mind-bending or mind-expanding. Normally we dream subconscious dreams which are psychological. These psychological dreams reflect what is going on in our mind during the day. This is made up of feelings, memories, our intentions, desires, our ego aims. Our waking mind is conditioned by our past experiences, by our upbringing, things we picked up from our family and school. Some of these we have absorbed before we were even very self-aware. Things like emotional patterns or reactions that we don't really name or describe. These things form the basis of how we look at the world and form our subconscious. These subconscious aspects influence how we interpret what is going on in the waking time. In the moment. Say you are at work, you are not necessarily aware of this influence. You are in the story and you react. But in dreams, these influences can appear, they are reflected and mixed together as symbols. These influences on our perspective don't follow the same logic and rules we apply to our world and waking habits. For instance, you see the customer walk in the store, but behind the scenes your mind equates them with a childhood enemy because of some association. They may just physically look like this person or speak in the same way. This can happen below the threshold of waking thought and awareness. You feel uncomfortable about the customer. You react defensively. You perceive them as threatening and interpret their appearance and actions in that light, without seeing the underlying association. Through force of habit, acting in your role at work, you can overcome or reject this association. Your way of being in the world may be naturally positive, or you could go the other way, and the association with the old memory may have enough influence. It may act in conjunction with other forces, such as you didn't get enough sleep. One of your coworkers called in sick and you face a stressful day, and the result is the subconscious association has more influence. This kind of material can appear in dreams. It reflects the inner process. Psychological dreams give you a space to see and work consciously with these subconscious elements through dream interpretation. Psychological dreaming is not about getting messages or guidance from the subconscious. Rather, psychological dreams are a window to our inner processes, and by interpreting these dreams, we begin to see why we have the view we have, or why we react or feel a certain way. We see what elements of our subconscious contributed to an experience. It can point out life transitions that are forming. Life situations that are changing often begin before we realize it consciously, before we start to name those changes to ourselves. We don't necessarily see change because we are living in the story. Both our inner self and outer circumstances change together. Just as sometimes you can see the dynamics of a relationship as an outsider that the people in the relationship can't see. Over time, through interpretation, and there are other means to do this as well, we begin to have enough self-knowledge that we see these influences coming up in our mind during the waking life. We become self-aware enough to see where we are coming from, and this can also allow us to change or make progress towards what we aim for ourselves to become. Psychological dreams become less revealing as we live with more awareness. We see in real time. We can do this as well with subliminal dreams. Subliminal dreams may be mixed with the subconscious elements, but the subliminal is a deeper level of the self and has wider awareness. It has greater knowledge and superior faculties such as subtle senses. It is less limited by the construct of the waking awareness, less a product of the subconscious, and is more of the greater potential that is within us, a potential that is limited by our subconscious. It is more subtle and can go beyond the normal confines of time and space. It makes connections with others, people, subtle beings, and a vaster array of subtle realities that the waking mind has difficulty accessing. When we can access the subliminal, we can access the greater resources of our inner being, the greater depths inside us. One way to establish a window to the subliminal consciousness in the waking time is to become aware of it in the dream time. This allows for greater knowledge, sense of purpose, sense of path, wider range of feelings, intuitive understanding of the flow of events, and more power to shape our lives. Most dreams are not subliminal, at least not at first, but elements of the subliminal consciousness can make their way into dreams. What kinds of dream experiences come from the subliminal? Premonitions, commerce, knowledge at a distance, deceased people, other beings, experiences of other planes or realities, guidance, messages, subtle causes revealed, formations and forces, even past lives. Probably the most common experience is premonitions, foreknowledge of an event. These range from dreams that reveal scenes or themes of the coming day to events years ahead of our time. Often these are not exact, though they can be, but for most people these appear symbolically. The experience of the future is put into dream language. For instance, I had a dream where a map appeared and was unfolded. That day I had someone show up needing to look at some of the river bottom land that was part of the property, and produced a map which they unfolded. The map image as a symbol turned out to have far-reaching consequences. But even as he drove into the driveway that day, I knew he was important. The dream symbol not being limited to just the physical occurrence, because the map was a rich symbol, a symbol which played out over the next several years. Premonition dreams at first are often recognized after the fact. You can have a dream that you remember, and then when the premonition unfolds, you recognize it, rather than you wake up knowing what is going to happen that day. That happens too, but often it is preceded by a learning process where you learn to recognize these elements. It is common to have them for weeks or months and then have them fade out to an occasional occurrence. Their importance also varies. Sometimes you foresee things that are just mundane. In the waking time, what most people would call intuition can get a boost because it is not just the dream. It is the connection to the subliminal that is important. Over time, you may not know exactly what will happen, but you can feel something is coming, either positive or negative. You can begin to see things that enter your stream of consciousness, be they thoughts, memories, imaginations, feelings, or even where your attention is drawn, foreshadowing the coming experience. This is the ability to connect to the influences of the subliminal consciousness. For instance, you have an uneasy feeling about doing something, trusting your gut. You feel good about a decision. You begin to think about someone for the first time in a long time, and then they show up. These kinds of synchronicities come with self-awareness, but there is another level of meaning that can be explored by working with both subliminal dreams and the self-exploration of psychological dreams. The difficulty is that you have to experience it for yourself, and you have to have experience with it because your desires, your ego, will take the imagination and try to pass off all sorts of things as premonitions or intuitions when they are not. So the training is to be objective, to stay grounded, to have some measure of sincerity and equality of your awareness. So here we have an aim of how we want to be, how we want to live. Some people have very specific experiences where they see exact details of things. This is rare. You may only have it happen every few years, or even a handful of times in your lifetime, but there are others where this is a regular occurrence. For them, this ability is usually specifically focused on one thing, for instance, relationships or work, or even a scientific field, something where their mind is constantly focused. People who have an innate ability for this are often called psychics. You will often find that they can be very accurate about one thing and have a lot of noise that comes with it. That one thing, if they're a good psychic, can be very accurate with detail and useful to know when you hear it, but the other things don't resonate and don't pan out. Subliminal dreams often reflect this, as they are mixed with subconscious elements, and at the same time, they are often less detail-oriented, but actually richer due to the symbolism. This allows you to move away from just seeing a recording of the future to seeing a wider meaning and import, seeing how it connects and why it is important. Another type of this experience is where there is a strong transformation, and people experience for a time a very thin line between dreaming and waking, and may not know which is which. Some dreams can appear as hyper-vivid and make waking reality seem vague or lacking in coherence. Intuitive knowledge, foreknowledge, and other things occur with this, sometimes bliss experiences, all manner of things. It can be difficult for a time, but this usually evens out and you can become more grounded and process what has happened. This borders on transcendent dreaming, And there are a number of names for this kind of experience, Kundalini awakening, for instance. But the experience rests on the wider opening to a subliminal consciousness and the appearance of waking reality as being more meaningful in a symbolic way that is more than just the ordinary appearances. This is the end of part 1. See below for the link to part 2. If you get something out of this video, please hit the like. If you want more dreams, then subscribe. Till next time.